Andrew, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. Yeah, it's going to be an awesome chat. And
Yeah.
so I'm going to get straight into it because we've actually got one of your fans who's in North Carolina where there's currently a hurricane happening. And so we're going to go straight there just in case she loses power and things like that.
Wow.
So, Aprina, hopefully I pronounced your name correctly. What's your question for Andrew?
Hi, Andrew. How are
Hey,
you?
I'm good. Are you okay?
I'm okay. I'm okay. We just moved down here this summer, and it's our first hurricane, and it's pretty intense here.
Bit of a
But we're okay.
whirlwind move.
A
Sorry.
little move. Yeah, it's okay. Um, I wanted to ask you. I love Chesapeake Shore. I've been watching since 2016. Just it was a beautiful, beautiful show. I wanted to ask you how you got into mindfulness and meditation and sound baths, especially. I'm a meditation breathwork teacher, and I had no idea that you did that. So I'd love to know.
Yeah, sweet. Well, pleasure to meet you, and thank you for the
Pleasure to
kind
meet
words
you.
on the show. Yeah.
Yes.
I got into, so we're here in my meditation studio in Vancouver called Zen Den Meditation. And, I went a lot of years just dealing with my stress in all kinds of different wild ways. I had kind of a crazy 20s, I guess you could say. And then, I had some time between season 1 and season 2 to sort of reevaluate and regroup. And I met the beautiful woman that I'm with right now, Carrie, and she always had this idea about starting a meditation business. And I wasn't into it at that time at all. And this is probably about 6 or 7 years ago. And, when she was hearing that I was going back to do season 2 of Chesapeake Shores and doing, my dream job, getting to be an actor on set, I could feel that she really wanted to do her dream job as well. And I had this apartment that I wasn't at, that we're here at now, but I was leasing out, and that person was moving. And I said, hey, do you want to start your dream business? We can start it up. So she said yes. And so we went into, this is in I don't know, maybe January or February or March, around there. And we were open by November. And we didn't really,
Wow.
I mean, she knew what she was doing, but I didn't really know. We didn't know if there was a market, and I wasn't supposed to teach, but the person who was going to be doing it with her had to pull out at the very last moment. And so I kind of had to go head first into the deep end and just learn to swim. And so I started with sort of the back end stuff, and I started taking certifications. So I took certifications for Tibetan sound bowls, for crystal bowls, for gongs. I got my breathwork certification as well. We actually just had a breathwork session next door while I was doing this.
Yeah.
That's wild. But breathwork is so amazing.
Yes.
So that's how I sort of kind of fell into it. And then after all the certifications and about 10,000 sound baths over this last 5 years, now I've really fallen in love with not only instruments, but also mindfulness and just taking a breath, slowing down, and grounding.
Yeah. Wonderful. I'm sure it's really helped in the preparation of, the role for your character and in life in general as well, too, to decompress probably.
And I'm sure you find the same thing. It's like, the things
Yeah.
you sort of practice in meditation, they seem to manifest in real life. And I get to use it in the character as well. So you find that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It helps so much. I work with families, and so it helps a lot to decompress and really be in tune with what they're needing the most as well. So
it's true. You can almost get your narrative out of the way and allow them to really say their thing and say what they want to say without any judgment, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's really cool.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for the question, and stay safe, okay?
Yeah, I will. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I actually work in education, Andrew, and I was talking to the ladies before you joined, and in New Zealand here, for the past few years, there's just been a big push on well-being. Unfortunately, our suicide statistics here aren't great in New Zealand. So in schools, there's a big push, and one of the things we do at our school is yoga every morning, and once they come back after the break, and then also, like a lot of teachers now are actually, we're going to professional development on mindfulness. And it's just been a real shift, I guess, in education here in New Zealand, which is, it's needed in today's, fast-paced, stressed environment that we live in.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I mean, for myself, especially, what we were just talking about is bringing sort of that mindfulness to all the other aspects of your life. So my cousin is a teacher in Ontario, and she's brought mindfulness into her classroom, and it's sort of spread throughout the school. And even when I'm on set, like we'll be doing our Chesapeake Shores, like our kitchen scenes or our big sort of dining room scenes out on the back patio, and they'll just be like pandemonium, and just finding that place of like stillness that you can find. And there's actually I know there's a question coming up about a little behind the scenes thing, but I'll give something away already. There was a scene in the very first episode when Connor comes home that didn't make the final cut. But it was a beautiful scene. It was just a little bit too heavy for that first episode, even though it was a heavy episode. But it's Connor, and he bursts into tears after he goes into like his little private room at the house. It was the hospital, walks in, and then he goes into this room. And he falls into his brother's arms and just cries his eyes out and just bursts into tears, and then sits on the bed. And then there's some anger that comes up towards Mick and towards Megan, but then that kind of turns into tears as well. And it was just really heavy. But what really helped me in that was meditation. So I would put on some music. I would be able to sort of bring up my substitutions as an actor and use that sort of grounded, sort of just still energy to stay in a place of like real pain, for the arts. And then bring that to the scene, because we would do it about 15, 20 times where I would have to just cry my eyes out. Yeah. I cried again when it didn't make the final cut. Just kidding. But yeah, meditation definitely helped in the preparation for that scene for sure.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Hey, so Chesapeake Shores, it's been 6 seasons. Can you still remember your audition?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I actually missed I did the first audition, which is just like with the casting director. And so that goes to like the different powers that be and stuff like that. And then they had the callback, and I was working on, it was with Alexa Penavega and I can't remember the gentleman's name. But it was like, we were on a boat, matchmaker it was a Hallmark movie, and I was doing a Hallmark movie, and I couldn't make the callback. And so I was like, man, I feel really connected to this character Connor, and I'm not going to be able to do the callback. This stinks. And thankfully they sort of saw me as Connor as well in some respects, and so they did another callback session, and I went in and I got to meet Dan Paulson, our big head honcho, and our showrunner at the time, John Tinker, as well as Candace Elzinga, our casting director, who was holding the session. And I remember it clear as day. It was a made-up scene between Kevin and Connor as he was in the season 1 was not happy. He wasn't a very happy guy. He had a big chip on his shoulder, and they weren't sure if I could have a big enough chip on my shoulder and have that much sort of like pain and aggression to really carry this Connor arc out to where he's now become this sort of more mature character. And so they really pushed me to show some of like the anger and the angst and the pain that Connor holds. And I guess it did the trick, whatever happened in that callback.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember.
Brilliant. So we are going to go to the UK, and we have got a question from Marissa. Marissa, what's your question?
Hi, Andrew. Thanks very much for joining this. That's me.
Of course.
I've watched Chesapeake Shores for the first time. I'm actually watching season 6 now, but I watched it all together, all the seasons. And I'm addicted, as I always get with these romantic shows. I love the family because it also reminds me a lot of my own family. We are 5, just like them. And Connor is a very interesting character, and I can't work him out completely. He's vulnerable, and he looks for appreciation. And I wanted to know your opinion of Connor as a character, because you know him better than anyone else does.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you. I think that he is definitely a vulnerable soul. In season 1, and that's awesome that you watched it from season 1. You really got sort of the blast of Chesapeake Shores. You got to see the whole trajectory, and not a very, I do a rewatch. But yeah, no, Connor, I mean, I didn't know where Connor was going to go when it first started. I mean, he was angry at Mom. You remember the scene where he was yelling at Megan, in his apartment in New York, and it ended in tears. And he was mad at Dad, and he was mad at his sisters. And then, he had a big tiff with Brendan, with Kevin. in season 2 or 3. So, I knew that he was going to be starting in this place, but I didn't really know. And especially with the changing in sort of, we've had a few showrunners over the years, Connor's character has sort of taken different directions. And it's been so interesting, when we talk before the season starts, we talk about sort of the direction that the character is going to go and, what might be happening this season. And I always say, are you in my brain? Are you in my life? I kind of sort of had a very similar trajectory to Connor in some respects, especially with the mindfulness, that came in after season 1, after all of that angst had come out of Connor. And then in season 2, he started to lighten up a little bit. He started to sort of find his groove somewhat, and that was me as well. That was Chesapeake Shores was my first show and my first character to sort of take on and tell this full arc. Connor is a very vulnerable character, especially to start, but still at the end. He loves his family a lot. He was hurt when it was just him and Jess. I think that scene in the library with Bree, where they sort of cry and talk about, what was it like for you when we were growing up? And I talk about myself, Connor, and Jess hiding in the bushes and stuff. And, we've all had our interesting childhoods. And so there's something to draw on from that as well. But I've just had such a blast playing Connor, because coming to the end of it now, I feel like, we're still on pace, myself and Connor. He's now sort of got his stuff together. He's making decisions for himself. He's finding out what real love is. And he's just sort of relaxed a little bit and been able to give advice to his siblings. And I feel like I've been able to fall into a place that's something like that as well. So I think you're right on the money that he's a vulnerable character, but I think he's definitely finding his strength. And
that's lovely.
Yeah.
I like hearing that. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you so much for the question.
Cool. Thanks, Marissa. So, Andrew, who is someone you admire or who inspires you?
Well, I'm inspired by a lot of people. I'm inspired by all the different beautiful, creative, interesting, amazing souls that are around me, either on Chesapeake Shores, or if I'm doing another Hallmark movie, or working with Sandra Bullock was wild a couple of years ago for The Unforgivable, getting to spend a day with her doing rehearsals, calling her Sandy. I'm like, Sandra Bullock, Sandy, this doesn't seem right. But it's the people, especially here in my city, that really inspire me. The voice actors who I've been working with since I was 9 years old, who are still the best in the business, the Sam Vincents, the Brian Drummonds, the Michael Dobsons, the Paul Dobsons, there's a lot of Dobsons, there's also Brian Dobson. All these guys inspire me a lot. They taught me everything I know in voice. And then when it comes to Chesapeake, my cast and my creatives inspire me so much. The crew is so hardworking. They're nonstop. They're the first to arrive. They're the last to leave. We have our trailers, we have our little snacks, and we have our umbrellas and stuff like that. And the crew is just the most hardest working crew. So the crew inspires me. And my cast inspires me so much, getting to learn from the great Treat Williams. Diane Ladd really took me under her wing. Barbara is amazing. All of my fellow siblings are just so rad. And Fief Sutton and Mark Legan, who came in for these last 2 seasons, are super inspiring as well. They brought new storylines and new life, and they really let Dan Paulson's show, Chesapeake Shores, and Cheryl Woods, of course, really grow and blossom and tell more grounded stories. So I think that my cast and those around me that I work with inspire me. They have inspired me since I was 9 years old, and they inspire me to this day, just all in their different capacities.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. So now we are going to Canada, and we have got a question from Janice. Janice, what's your question?
Canada.
Hey, coming to you from Ottawa. Andrew, totally addicted to this show, and I gotta say, I don't watch TV. I just happened to happen upon an episode of Chesapeake because I do like Treat Williams, and I watched my first show about a couple of years ago, and I just, I can't get enough, and I wish it wasn't ending, but 6 years is incredible, 6 seasons. You spoke a bit to this question a bit earlier on, but I was wondering about yourself and the role of Connor. You had different writers, different directors, different showrunners. You must feel like you really do know this character. and somebody else is writing his voice, somebody else is writing his life, how much do you get to come in and kind of shape what you do as an actor? This is what Connor would feel right now, or this is how Connor might put something. How much do you get to bring your own sense of things as an actor into that character that somebody else is writing?
Yeah, that's a great question. On the day, a lot more than the lead up to it. I think that the writing has been really spectacular, especially in the last 2 seasons, but for the whole show. But you know, the showrunner, whether it be Michael Burns, who was our last showrunner, or John Tinker, who was our first showrunner, they would always call us beforehand, and of course, Fief Sutton and Mark Legan now. They would call us before any season would start and sort of tell us about our arc. If we had any ideas, we could give those ideas, but they had some really strong and great ideas to go with. So to try and sort of give them anything on top of that just didn't need to happen because it was so good. But on the day, and I have to speak, you know, to just sort of, especially the more recent showrunners and writers that we've had, Mark Legan and Fief were on set every single day. And when there wasn't something that was working, they would be right there to rewrite something by the time we got to close up. Let's say it was an ending of a scene or a button, or, you know, the days leading up when we get the scripts and we're going through them, we could call and change things or ask for things to be changed. And they would grant things that they thought totally made sense and were for the character. And then sometimes they thought, no, you know, there's a story reason for this to happen. And in the edit, it was always found that they definitely were right. Whether they were accepting of your wanting change or they were saying, no, leave it the way that it is. But they would always give you the option of doing it both ways. So if it was just a line or something, they'd do that. And one person who really took advantage of this, and I think the best, was Treat Williams, who is just spectacularly funny and just a mega talent. And I mean, there's this one line last season where he walks back in after, spoiler alert, by the way, for season 5, people who haven't seen it yet. But Treat walks in at the mid-season, I think it's episode 5, and we had just sort of put the dupe on DLP and mailed the wrong thing and caught them sort of looking at my desk. And the scene was just supposed to end with us leaving. And Treat and Fief get along really well because they're really into the same sort of old movie humor. They get more stuff than I get. But Treat wanted to walk in and say, you know, that's my son, the lawyer. And that wasn't scripted at all. And so he came in and did that a few times and it made the cut. It happened to be one of the funniest lines in the whole season, right? And so, yeah, no, they work with you to not only tell the story that they know they want to tell, that Hallmark also wants to tell and has been approved through those channels, but as an artist, they work with you to sort of mold it so that it's yours as well, you know? So it's a team effort.
Oh, that's lovely, because that's sort of a level of comfort and respect and mutual regard. That's what it comes through. We hear you guys say that, but it really does come across that you've had a really lovely experience as an actor on the show.
Oh, it's been, I can say it's been the greatest experience of my life as an actor. I mean, 6 seasons, over 50 episodes of telling a character's story and starting where Connor started and now being where Connor is now. It's been just an absolute joy and a workout and a learning experience and something that I'll hold dear for the rest of my life, for sure.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you, Andrew.
Cool.
Of course.
Thank you, Janice. So we've got some questions coming through live on YouTube. So we have a question from Poppy, who is in the UK, and she has asked, if the characters were real, who would you feel most connected with?
Definitely Connor. But if I had to choose another character, oh gosh, I'm a bit of a Jess sometimes. I'm a little, my humor can be a little sporadic, and so can I, and that's kind of the fun of me, as well as sometimes okay, just slow it down a little bit. Maybe you need to meditate. So I'm definitely a lot like Connor, for sure, in a lot of different ways. But there's definitely a little bit of Jess in there as well. And Lacey cracks me up when we do scenes together. She's the one who always gets us laughing too. Like we'll be doing these breakfast scenes and, you'll catch Lacey's eye and that's, we're kind of alike in that way too. And Jess is like that as well. But Lacey will have that little glint of laugh in her eye and she'll get Brendan. Brendan will always be the first to go. And then Amelia will go. And then I'll try and hold together because the camera's on me and they're all, But she's always starting a laugh. But a little bit like Jess, I'd say. Connor and Jess, if I had to choose another character.
Poppy has also asked, will we get to see any of those deleted scenes that, you know, didn't make the cut or bloopers?
That's a good that's a good question. You know, I want to see some bloopers.
Yeah.
We the last 2 years were in COVID, and so we didn't have a wrap party. So we didn't get to, and bloopers are like when we all come together, like the crew, the cast, we're all in there blooping, you know? But I was really hoping to see some of those, like that deleted scene that I mentioned earlier, or the bloopers. So if we do get sent them and we're allowed to share them, I'll be putting them out there for sure.
Awesome.
I'm not quite sure. I know Hallmark Movies Now is airing the episodes, and maybe they'll do a deleted scenes sort of collab once the show wraps up.
Yeah.
I would love to see that. That'd
Yes,
be awesome.
I think so would we. Yeah, awesome. Now we have got a question from Kerry. Kerry, what's your question?
Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and spending your time with a little bit of time with your fans. So I got interested in Chesapeake Shores after I read the books, as I followed Cheryl Woods, who actually used to spend her summers like 15 minutes away from me. So I started following her, and so I started reading her books. And then I was wondering, have you ever read any of the books?
No, I have not read the books. I read a little bit of the very first book, but it was kind of known to us when the show started that there were that it wasn't going to stick directly to the books. So there was almost the, you know, don't get sort of attached to something that may go in another direction. And I think that, you know, there was, just trying to be sort of, what would I say? No, I didn't read the books, but I think that's something that I'd love to explore once the show is done. You know, I mean, I've met Cheryl many, many times, and she's just such a lovely, lovely, bright energy, you know, to be around. And now that the series is coming to an end, I think it's a perfect time to dive into the books and, I don't know, see what Trace would be like as an architect and not a country music star, or, you know, and see what Connor, you know, what went down with Connor in the books. But no, short answer is no, but long answer is I can't wait.
Awesome.
They're very good. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank
I'm excited to watch Sweet Magnolias too, which is another Dan Paulson production, and of course based off Cheryl Woods books too.
Yeah. No, I think they're just filming the next season of Sweet Magnolias, I think, at the moment. Yeah, it's an awesome show. Love that one too.
Yeah, that or they just wrapped up. Yeah.
Yeah. So Andrew, what's the best piece of advice that you've been given?
Ooh, that's a good one. What's the best piece of advice I've been given? You know, for acting, actually, it came from Treat on one of our last days this season on the island together. And I had learned that scene got cut and he was in it. And I asked, I said, you know, do you think it should have been? And, you know, like, did I do something wrong? Did it seem not good? And he's like, no, it was really great. And Treat, of course, you know, for anybody who's been following along in season 6, has given one of the greatest, if not the greatest, television performances I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, him dealing with what he's dealing with this addiction, and while covering it up, I mean, after that crash and then the scene with Kevin and him slurring and telling them to call the other tow truck company, I just kind of blew my mind. I actually almost forgot the question. Sorry, what was it again?
What was the best piece of advice you've been given?
Right. I was just lost with Treats before. It was just so good this season. I was blown away. We were sitting there, and a great piece of advice, you know, was for acting. It's you never show the emotion. And he said, you know, you didn't do anything wrong. He said, I think you did do this, but always keep this in mind. Is you're never showing the emotion. You're always doing your best to cover up that emotion. Right? You know, so when you're angry at someone, let's say, you're not going to be full out angry with them. You're trying to talk nicely to them, but the anger lives underneath. Right. And, you know, there was that scene where he sort of broke down a few times and I could really see what he was doing and what he meant. And it was, you know, don't play the emotion, play the covering up the emotion.
Wow.
And I think that in acting, that is just such great advice, because people see an angry line and they say, okay, well, I have to say that angry. But the most interesting choice is going the complete opposite way, you know? And that made me start thinking about, and we were talking about this after that great piece of advice from Treat, was that, you know, you live in this place of emotion, is like anger, you know, it's here, sadness, you have happy, you have fear. And that's why, you know, when you're happy, you can cry, right? Because you're kind of living in the middle. So you can draw from different emotions to sort of, I guess, inspire the other emotions that you're going through. And that's why, you know, I think that covering up the emotion and not actually playing the emotion on the nose is probably one of the best pieces of acting advice I've ever gotten.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. So now we have got a question from Diane. Diane, what's your question?
Hi, Andrew. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
My question is, you started acting when you were 6 years old. How did you get interested in acting? How did you know that that was going to be your lifelong passion?
Good question. Wow, I could really think ahead, couldn't I? At 6. I watched Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse a lot. I mean, I watched a lot of Looney Tunes, but I know this story well because my mom tells me probably twice or 3 times a year. I said, Mom, I want to be inside the playhouse. I want to be inside the TV, inside the thing. And so I was saying this since I was like 4. And then when I was 6, Mom said, okay, I'll take you to an audition. And so I went to an audition, and it was for Fisher-Price roller skates. And I got the job and did the thing. And I did about 40 commercials and loved it. I did Lamb Chops Play Along. My brother came to that audition, and that was the last audition he ever did. Whenever Mom heard that we didn't want to go back to an audition, she was done. She was like, okay, I don't want to necessarily have to drive the 50 minutes in and wait the hour and then the 50 minutes back, because we lived about an hour outside of the city. And so, that's what got me into the, I guess, just sort of young stuff. And then when I was 9, I got braces. That got me into voice work. And then I absolutely fell in love with voice work. And then in my 20s, I started to really fall in love with acting after I reprogrammed myself from child actor brain into the art of acting, you know, being a thespian, right? And pulling on emotion and not faking anything, just being, you know, breathing, essentially. This is a huge difference. But I guess I didn't really know when I was 6. I knew I wanted to do it. I never wanted to stop. And thankfully, the work kept coming in. So I'm just super grateful for that.
Did you have a backup plan if you hadn't become an actor? Was there something else you would have wanted to do?
Yeah. I mean, I went to, when I got out of school right away, I went to BCIT for independent producing. It's a technical college here in Vancouver. So producing was on the list. I was going to maybe go to USC for directing. I liked everything in film. But I also always said, you know, since I was a kid, that I wanted to be a businessman if I wasn't or business person, if I wasn't in the arts. And I guess that kind of happened as well. You know, in between 1 and 2, we started the meditation business, and it's been gangbusters ever since. It's been doing really well. And we developed an app, the Everything Spiritual app, which has, you know, hundreds of hours of sound baths that's available in any app store. And so it's something in the business place. So whether it be a producer, which is mostly the business of film, or starting a small business like I have, I've tried to sort of interweave my backup plans just in case Chesapeake Shores is the last job I ever do. I hope not.
No.
We hope not either.
But I got a few backups floating around.
Thank you, Andrew.
Awesome.
Of
Thank
course,
you.
my pleasure. Yeah.
So and we have got a question from is it Jill from the Netherlands? I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. They're watching this live on YouTube, and they have asked, what is your favorite location to film? His office, his home, or the family home?
What was the first one?
Your office, your home, or the family home. So what is your favorite location to film?
First of all, hey, Jill. I know Jill from live tweeting on Twitter and from a few other things. We've had some meditations. So, awesome. Hey, Jill, glad you're watching. That's a great question, Jill. Oh, gosh. I mean, I love the O'Brien house. And I got to spend year after year after year watching as, like, you know, the picture frames had newer and newer and newer memories, you know, over the years. Like, that was really cool to watch, like our actual film family evolve in this house, and the view is amazing, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful location. So I have all the love in the world for the O'Brien house. But man, it was really cool to get my own office, to get my own apartment. It was really sweet. The office was actually, I mean, you got to see its actual construction. I mean, when I walked in there and, I'm with Kev and with Mick, and, we're deciding that we're taking the place with Mick, and then, start banging down the walls with Brendan, with Kevin. That was actually it before it was made. It was just nothing, right? Same spot. And then they built this beautiful office, and there was a few episodes in between. And so I got to on my days off, I drove over to Qualicum from Parksville where we were staying. And I looked in and went, what? This is my office? This is unbelievable. Like, they did such a good job. And then they topped it with my apartment this season, because my apartment was built right next to on a stage, but the stage was actually a curling club, right? Oh. So inside a curling club, and right next to Mick's office, right? So if you just go outside of my apartment, you walk into Mick's office. But walking for the first time into Connor's apartment, I was like, oh, it was so beautiful. It was just this big open concept with this little patio in the back, and it even had a Tibetan singing bowl, and they knew what they were doing with that one, put it right on the table. And so I really loved my apartment. So I have love for all three. But if I could just take that apartment and bottle it up and just unravel it over here at home, I would definitely do that. So I think I'm going to choose my apartment, but
awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. We have got a question from Avril, who's actually in New Zealand, where I am. So Avril, what's your question?
Hi, Andrew. Lovely to meet you. And
to meet you.
You sound so incredibly busy with the 6 seasons and also your mindfulness. What do you actually do away from that? Because I've just recently been to Vancouver and absolutely fell in love with the place. I thought, you've got so many things. We tried zip lining, we did the Eagle Coaster, we did crazy mad stuff. So what would you do to unwind when you're not doing either of your other very busy jobs?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. Thank you for the laugh. One of the things that I love is anything on a board, really. So up until a few years ago, until my friend moved away, we had a boat share. So a few of us had access to this just brand new, beautiful boat.
Wow.
Up at the Indian Arm, yeah. And so I would wakeboard and wake surf on that. I have 2 jet skis, so I would do some water sports and stuff like that. But anything on a board. Snowboarding, I love. So in the winter, I'm up on the mountain. In the summer, I actually found this thing called a one wheel. And for anybody who is a big lover of snowboarding and wants to be able to do it all season long, it's snowboarding on concrete. It's white.
Yes, I've seen it. Yeah.
Have you seen this before? Okay, so that's me. I'm the guy who puts on the Bose headphones, the big ones, and is wearing just short, not enough wear your protective gear, kids, anybody who's watching.
Yeah.
But maybe not enough. And I just go. And we have the seawall, as you know, here. And I will just put those on and go into flow state, form of meditation, and not look at anything but what's coming in front of me and the music that's playing. So if I'm not around in the meditation studio or on a set or just chilling at home, you will find me whipping at about 30K with music blaring in my headphones around the seawall, taking in nature.
Well done. Oh, that's really great. Yeah. But say hello to Vancouver for me, would you? I really miss it, to be quite honest.
Definitely. It says it misses you as well. So yeah, the feeling is mutual.
All right. Well, you come over here anytime. I'm in the wine growing area, right on the beach. So great spot.
I'd love to.
Relax.
All right. I'm there. It's a date.
Thank you.
Thank you, Avril. So Avril's actually, I'm in the North Island, so I'm quite a distance away from Avril, but New Zealand, if you're into the snowboarding, the wakeboarding, any adventure stuff outdoors, we are the place to be. So you might have to take a trip to New Zealand.
I think I'm going to have to come check it out.
Absolutely. So we are going back to, hopefully Apruna is still with us. I know that she was going to tune in. Yes.
I am here. Hi.
I
just trying to turn off the lights with this one, but I'm okay. I'm curious, Andrew, what I first want to ask, what's one of the most memorable scenes you've had in the past 6 years? If you could pick one.
Yeah, that's a good question. Very good question. So many memorable scenes to choose from. I mean, over the seasons, I feel like there was always kind of a memorable scene per season. I mean, the one that really stands out to me right away was just was talking to Amelia or Bree in the bookstore when we both break down at the end and we kind of just give each other a side hug, talking about our childhoods. That was never meant to be like no tears were really meant to come up in that, really. It was just kind of a talk. And we did the first scene with one of our brilliant directors, Terry Ingram, who did a lot of our episodes in the last 2 seasons, especially 3 seasons actually. And it was just this 2-shot, and we went in and just the tears started flowing from her and from me. And it was just acting, you know what I mean? It was just like, it just was art. And so that was one of the most memorable scenes. And then also, you know, the fighting with Treat in I believe it was season 1, when we're on the beach. I think we're at the festival, and I bring him to the side and I'm like, you should have told me. And just the first time getting to work across from such a brilliant actor, you know, and like a guy who's so present, who's so right there and listens to every word you're saying and is reacting. And like, you can't hide, you know what I mean? You can't pretend, you can't come in with an idea of how you're going to say the line. You have to work with Treat, because Treat is giving you Treat through Mick. So I think that was a real memorable scene as well.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's wonderful seeing the dynamic between you and Treat, you and Mick now in seasons 5 and 6 as well, and how you guys have evolved. I know it's been intense with what's been going on with the characters on the show as well too. I want to give a round of applause as well, especially
the whole cast. I mean,
the whole cast. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And my last question is, between the beginning and now, is there anything that when you started out on the show, were you hoping that the audience would take something away from the show when you started out versus now?
Yeah, it changed. You know, I think that when I started the show, I was just so excited to be on this show. I mean, I'm working with Diane Ladd, I'm working with Treat. And now I hope that the audience, after sort of seeing it unravel and show itself, you know, is that, you know, with the good comes the bad. Every family has its ups and its downs. And, you know, there's this great quote that I love to sort of live by, is this too shall pass, you know? So when things are really, really bad, you know, when we were having that real intense scene when Bree has released the book and we're all sitting around in the O'Brien thing, and that was a fiery scene. Like, I mean, yelling at Barbara Niven it's like the hardest thing ever, because she's the sweetest.
She's so sweet,
on the planet. But, you know, to have to step into that, because that's real, you know, and there's the storylines and the arcs and the things that have happened, especially in these last 2 seasons, have really shown that, you know, with what Mick is dealing with this season, with the addiction, with the miscarriage that Sarah had, with the heart attack that Connor went through at such a young age, because he's, you know, staying up all night, not taking care of himself. Like, that's what happens, right? Along with these beautiful, joyous moments and these weddings and, you know, like all this stuff, you know, the wedding of Jess and David and whatever it may be. The good comes with the bad. This too shall pass. You know, take the good with a grain of salt, take the bad with a grain of salt. I hope that's what people take from the show, is just that, you know, it's okay when things aren't going well. Just breathe and just, you know, keep a positive intention.
Right. I think we all needed to hear that at some point, especially in the past few years. But thank you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you. So I'm not quite sure if you're driving or if you're still parked. So have you got a question, or are you driving? I can see you're in your car.
No, I'm parked in a parking lot. I got off my job and I'm sitting in a hot car, but I would do anything to support Belinda in her chats, and just sitting here because I haven't watched the show yet. It's in my queue, but to see you and hear about this show really helps a non-fan, you know, get into it. And so I was wondering, what would you say to me to kind of entice me to start watching this show, since I haven't?
That's a great question. Yeah. To entice you to watch the show, I think that you're going to watch some of the greatest actors on earth tell stories that are going to make you feel uplifted and make you feel joy. And then you're going to have some of the greatest actors on earth show you what it's like when everything comes crashing down and you have to rebuild from sometimes next to nothing or worse. I think it shows you the lighter side of life, the underbelly of things that don't get looked at. And I really do think that it's unlike any other show. It's Hallmark, the brand, but it's also unlike any other show in that it tells stories that are just a little bit different, and I feel a little bit more grounded. So I think it's a journey, and I think that you have a lot of awesome episodes to watch and a lot of growth. And you get to see 7 years. You get to see me pretty much turn from a young pup, in his 20s to now almost 40. So there's a lot to see in the show, and it's some of the greatest actors, greatest actors on earth showing it to you. So that's why.
Well, thank you. I am a big Hallmark movie fan and channel fan, and I'm kind of semi-retired. And end of November, I'll be fully retired, and I have a lot of shows to sit and watch.
if for nothing else, watch it for Diane Latch, because she is just the best. Her Mel's nuggets are worth it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you,
pleasure to meet you, Sue.
Thank you. So we've got another question from somebody who's watching live on YouTube, from Star, who's in Carolina. She has asked, what will you miss most about portraying Connor?
Oh my goodness. A lot. It's really tough to even answer that question. First of all, I'll miss the family that we have, 6 seasons over 7 years. The crew, some of them, a majority of them have been there from the very start. My cast, getting to go and hang out for 3.5, almost 4 months with such an amazing group of people. I'm going to miss that incredibly. And Connor specifically, I'm really attached to Connor. Especially now, it's just stuff's just starting to go right for him. Can we get this thing like 3-4 more seasons? I want to see where this goes. Working with Marissa Krause, who plays Margaret, has been just such a joy. And so I'm going to miss so many different aspects of Connor. He is such a layered character. He has every emotion, and he tries his best at comedy. And it's been so much fun trying to bring those alive. So I'm going to miss Connor, the human, and the skin that I got to step into, every single bit about him. I'm sure that I'll have lots of opportunities to step into other characters and enjoy those as well. But I spent my entire 20s being Connor year after year, and I wouldn't give it up for the world, and I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss it dearly.
Cool. Thank you. We're going to go back to Janice. Janice, what's your next question?
Hey, Andrew, I'm just jumping off from what you've said about your feelings about, this show should keep going, because there have been so many new beginnings really in this season, from, Abby and Evan and you and Keller and Bree and Luke, and Hallmark is winding it down. I know you guys haven't been able to take it for granted that there's another season. I remember S6 for sure is hashtag that we were, what can we do as fans and watchers? What can we do to encourage the Christmas movie beyond the hashtag? What can we do to encourage? Give us a bit more. Just give us a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. You are definitely right. I think there was a lot of sort of storylines that opened up in season 6, even though going in, it was known this would sort of be the wrap up of it. So that says something. As for what the fans and what all of us can do for the show is really, the viewership and the watching of the show is paramount. If it's watched, then that's sort of definitely eyes are on numbers. So watching and telling your friends to watch and tweeting and just doing as much as you can to support the show, that helps. Just sort of putting it out there. It could be a Christmas movie. There could be, I know, what is Signed, Sealed, Delivered. They have done sort of movies, starring different people, or maybe going on different sort of journeys with certain people. That might be an option, a Christmas movie. So I think just tweeting at Hallmark, letting them know how much you love the show, and just getting your friends to get together and watch it live on Sunday nights is the thing that you can do that will help the show maybe have some legs more so than it has now.
Will do. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And,
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. What's on your bucket list, Andrew?
My bucket list. Oh, we'll go to New Zealand now. Good grief.
You have to. Look, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. I'm just gonna go for the accent. It's just
Oh my gosh, I was thinking that sounded more like somebody from the UK.
Well, I didn't want to do an Australian and be
No.
completely. Yeah.
No.
So I got it wrong with England instead.
That's okay. Oh.
I think that traveling, I've been working since I was 6 years old. I think the longest I've ever been away was pilot season in LA, and I missed the Olympics here in Vancouver to do it. So that was quite the choice. But yeah, the longest I've been away other than that was 6 weeks in Montreal doing a movie. And so I've never really done any real traveling. I did a week in Thailand, 1 week. That's all I could get away. Yeah. So I think that traveling is going to become a big thing. And it's great timing because we're working with a company called Dharma, and they do travel retreats. And so we're starting a retreat. Dharma. And we're going to be setting up retreats all around the world. So New Zealand, I think, just made the list.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Travel.
Absolutely. Travel. Fantastic. We are coming back to Diane. Diane, what's your next question?
Is there a role or character that you haven't played that you would like to?
Yes, most definitely. I think, one that I've been sort of gearing up towards and is the leading man type of role. I think this last 7 years and 6 seasons on Chesapeake has kind of brought me as a person and me as an actor closer to be able to take that role on. One of my sort of bucket list things, I guess, going back to the last question as well, would be to play the leading man, to be on the poster of a Hallmark movie, being a part of the brand for so long and doing so many MOWs leading up to Chesapeake and during. I would love to take one on as mine. That would be really, really fun. But as for a character, so a leading man type of role, that would be cool to step into. And then there's the flip side, playing villains is super fun too. So maybe someplace else playing a kind of a devious role. But I've wanted for years since the show started or season 2 or something to really play a leading man on a Hallmark movie and maybe continue to do that for the audience. So I don't know, can we get a petition together? Let's get this going.
I can see you in comedy.
Comedy?
Yeah.
Yeah. I did actually, I did a couple episodes, 2 or 3 episodes on a show called Loudermilk. And it was directed by Peter Farrelly. And he was behind There's Something About Mary and Dumb and Dumber and the Farrelly brothers. And so if you want to see me in a little bit of comedy, check me out there. I would love to do more comedy. I played a really hilarious role in that. I got nominated for it. If you ever want to, I'm in the first season in a couple episodes, Loudermilk, check that out. But I would love to do a comedy. There was a comedy here in Vancouver that almost went. They did 3 episodes. I was booked in the 4th, opposite Chelanne Simmons, and it was in front of a live studio audience, which never happens in Vancouver. And then the show ran out of money. The episode before, and I never got to do it. But comedy would be rad. Yeah, that'd be super sweet.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
you.
My
pleasure.
So what was it like working with Sandra Bullock? I saw, I watched that movie, I can't remember when, and then I saw her on your Instagram and I thought, oh my gosh, yeah, what was it like working with her?
It was wild. It was super cool. The script was a little bit different when we first went to shoot it. The scene that I did was broken up and scattered throughout and has a lot to do with the reveal as well at the end of the movie, which I won't spoil for anybody. But it was unbelievable to hear that I was sitting down for a good rehearsal, a half-day rehearsal with Sandy and the director and the one other actor that I worked with who was actually in Something About Mary. He played Mary's brother, who is a talented actor. And we all got to sit there with Sandy and she got to spitball and say her ideas and go back and forth. And she was just so gracious and, so open to the ideas that we had and was just I mean, she was a producer on it. She was, she's Sandra Bullock, and she didn't act like Sandra at all. She acted like Sandy. She acted like an actor who was working with us, and she brought such an amazing performance. So it was an incredible experience working with her. I was blown away by just how grounded and how kind she was. Yeah.
Are there any other actors who you would, love to work with in the future?
Yeah. I mean, I really, back in the day, I got to work with John Malkovich on a movie called Knockaround Guys. It was a wild cast. It was John Malkovich, Dennis Hopper, Vin Diesel before he was Vin Diesel, Seth Green, who I'd grown up watching. But I would love to work with John Malkovich again. And in my producing career, I was very, very close to producing a movie where he was, and it's still in the works, but I came on a little late, where he plays the main villain, or at least was considering playing the role very strongly. And so we almost got to meet in sort of a different capacity. And I played a young Barry Pepper in this movie, Knockaround Guys, but he has his arms like right around me. And it's the very first scene of the movie, and then I grow up. But I would love to work with John Malkovich again. I got to work with Treat Williams. I got to work with Diane Ladd. But I'd love to, or a Daniel Day-Lewis would be really cool. I'd love to work with somebody who just like goes like almost method acting. I did that for a movie I did with Grayston Holt called Fakers. That's the one I mentioned that was in Montreal for 6 weeks. It's where we met. And I he was a bit of not the greatest guy, but I decided to go almost method for that. And it got me into a little bit of trouble, but it put out a stellar performance. I was actually nominated against Barry Pepper for a Gemini Award out East. And so that was a full circle moment as well, who I played as a kid many, many years ago. But I'd love to work with an actor who goes kind of method so I could see that. Because I love starting a scene before action, where we're just talking, doing the activity, being our characters, and then eventually, you hear action, and then the lines start coming out as they're written in the script, and you're just doing the thing, right? And there's not a lot of actors that necessarily work that way, so I think that would be a dream of mine, would be working with an actor who uses that method.
Cool, thank you. It's hard to believe that we were coming up on our hour. Marissa, you are going to be the lucky last to ask Andrew a question.
My other interesting question about Connor has actually been answered, so that's fine.
That's okay.
Well, that was great. All right.
Bye. So just wondering if you have any other shows that you're working on, like acting roles, that you can tell us about.
Right now, there are a few things in the works. Acting wise, I can't say. Cartoons, for all the younger kids watching, there's a few cartoons that, there's a cartoon called World Trigger, who I played Jin in. There's going to be some news coming out about that. And I've just taken quite a big role in a show called Ninjago, which is a Lego property. So there's some stuff there. But for on camera, no, I can't spill any beans as of yet. But there are beans to be spilled soon.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
Cool.
Yeah.
You're busy enough anyway.
I'm between the meditations. No, and also I've been in contact with this lovely fellow down in the United States, and along with a team that he's working with, and he's working with the top actors in the world. There was a production, Marlowe, that we were talking about. I was coming on as an executive producer. It didn't pan out for that, but moving forward, we're going to be doing our best to work together. And Marlowe's with, what's his name? His name is escaping me, but if you look it up, you'll see it, Marlowe. He always plays, his name is escaping me. He always is looking like, where is my son? But it's not Harrison Ford. Anyways, if you look it up, amazing cast. Alan Cumming, who I got to work with on Tin Man, he's in it. And there's some other stuff that he has slated, the writer of that. And he's been talking about some parts in some of those movies. So I'm not sure who exactly I'm going to be playing in those movies. There's one actor who I know I might be playing a young version of, who's a very, very big actor. So that's all in the works.
Good.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Marissa. We will have to, we will keep an eye out on your Instagram when you are allowed to spill the beans. So yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andrew, I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us. I can't believe the hour has just gone by just like that. This has been amazing. And I was talking to the ladies before, And I didn't realize that you had an app out. And so I said, as soon as we finished here, I'm going to have to download the app and share it with all my friends as well. So
it's a great app. It's called Everything Spiritual.
Yes.
And I created every single sound bath that's on the app. I do guided meditations in my very relaxing type voice. Nice. So if you're looking to break into meditation, or if you're listening or looking to hear some just beautiful frequencies, we use 10, 15 different gongs that are all tuned to different celestial bodies. That's a whole explanation on how they do that. Satellites, it's wild. And then all the frequencies through the bowls that we use are perfect pitch and work with the body. There's sleep sound baths that are like 12 hours long. So if you have trouble going to sleep,
that's me.
Asleep,
yes, that's me. That's why.
And it's perfect. Yeah. Everything Spiritual app is for you. Yeah.
Yes. All right, Andrew, so thank you so much for taking the time out to chat. I hope we can chat again sometime. And just a big shout out and thank you to those people around the world who are watching this live, to everybody who's joined. Shelly, my friend, thank you so much. But thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much.
Of course. And we'll see you on Sunday for Chesapeake Shores season 6.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrew.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.